Upgrade your sleep with the award-winning Pod 4 Ultra by 8 Sleep, a smart mattress cover that fits easily over your existing mattress. With adjustable temperature settings ranging from 55 to 110 degrees, you and your partner can each enjoy customized comfort on your own side of the bed. I keep mine at 60 to stay cool throughout the night. It even includes smart technology to adjust your mattress position, help reduce snoring. Plus, you'll have 30 days to see if it's the right fit for you. Right now, for Black Friday, 8 Sleep is giving my audience up to $600 off your Pod 4 Ultra purchase when bundled. Go to 8sleep.com/Pakman and use code Pakman. The link is in the description. Welcome to the show, everybody. We've learned that one thing Donald Trump really doesn't like is strong women who have the audacity, the ovarian fortitude to tell Trump, hey, you're wrong about this, and by the way, there will be consequences. Now, we're specifically going to drill down into this in the context of Donald Trump's recent declarations that he will tariff Mexico, and he will tariff Canada, and he will extra tariff China to high heaven. Well, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is doing exactly what Trump hates and has written a brutal letter responding to Donald Trump's announcement of these new tariffs. Here is a world leader addressing reality. What a welcome change of pace from Trump living in a complete and total fantasy world. Let's focus in on a few elements of this letter. Sheinbaum corrects Trump in the letter about migrant crossings. One of the things Trump said in his declaration on Truth Central was that part of the reason he's going to tariff Mexico is because there is an unprecedented number of migrant crossings. Well, what Sheinbaum points out, it's not even, I was going to say brilliantly, but not really brilliantly, just accurately. Sheinbaum points to our own data from Customs and Border Patrol, which finds that migrant crossings are actually down. This is not something Trump wants to admit when Joe Biden is president, because they're supposed to always be pretending that it's an ever-increasing number of undocumented crossings. But according to CBP, encounters are down 75% over the last 11 months. Trump wants you to believe they're up. Now, let me address one of the big I don't want to call it one of the big rebuttals to this data is as follows. We tell them, hey, encounters are down by 75%. Fewer people are coming over. They very quickly say, just because encounters are down doesn't mean anything. It's because they're letting everybody through. They're not stopping anybody. You don't stop someone, there's no encounter. It's sort of like if you don't do a COVID test, you don't get any cases. The problem is they like to say the opposite when it's inconvenient. When they want to argue that undocumented crossings are up, they will very quickly go to the number of encounters and go, look, the number of encounters is up. And then we say, well, encounters mean we're stopping people. The point is, if we accept generally that encounters are a proxy to the number of undocumented crossings, which we believe them to be, they are down 75%. Claudia Sheinbaum points this out to Donald Trump. Secondly, Trump made the claim that guns are coming over the border from Mexico, and this is another reason why he's going to punish Mexico with new tariffs. Well, as far as guns go, Sheinbaum points out that 70% of the illegal weapons that they seize in Mexico went into Mexico from the United States. Not a statistic that Donald Trump or any MAGA will acknowledge to you. Thirdly, the Mexican president says that the United States might do well if we reallocated just a sliver of the money that we spend on war and defense and the military and weapons, and just redirect a sliver of it to fostering development and fomenting peace, then everybody would be better off. And of course, she's completely and totally correct, but good luck explaining to any MAGA Republican that it might make sense to cut the military budget. Now, there's this kind of weird game that's going on right now where Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy as the heads of DOGE, the Department of Gag-Worthy Edgelords, they're kind of paying lip service to the idea that everything's on the table. Sure, we might cut defense. Of course, we have the data. And during Donald Trump's first presidential term, defense spending actually went up 21%. It's unlikely that the guy who raised the military budget is suddenly going to shrink it. And then finally, and this is maybe the critical part of this letter, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, says to Trump, it's not a threat, I guess. I mean, you could call it a threat, you could call it a promise. She says that for every tariff Trump puts on Mexico, there will be a response in kind, a Mexican tariff on an American good. She acknowledges, see, this is the critical difference between Sheinbaum and Trump. The Mexican president acknowledges you putting tariffs on us and then our retaliatory tariffs on you. It's bad for everyone. Trump pretends this is awesome. Sheinbaum understands that this is a textbook example of a trade war, and nobody wins a trade war. First, Trump will put tariffs on goods from Mexico. It's not Mexico that pays, it's us. The companies in the U.S. that import goods from Mexico will pay more. Mexico will then retaliate with their tariffs on American goods, a retaliatory tariff. The same thing will happen. Mexican consumers will pay more for American exports. That means they might buy less stuff from American companies. So things will cost more here, and then American companies are not going to see as much demand for their products in Mexico. That will hurt them as well. But it's even worse than that, because the U.S. and Mexico aren't just trading partners. We're actually manufacturing partners. There are modern supply chains where it's not, is this made in the USA or is this made in Mexico? Car parts, for example, might be made in the US, sent to Mexico to be assembled into a larger unit of a car, and then sent back to the United States to then potentially be part of a final assembly of a vehicle. Who is making that? That being what? Which element of it? The part, the section, or the total vehicle? Everybody gets hurt, is the point. Additionally, when you see U.S.-Mexico tariffs and retaliatory tariffs, it's not good for small businesses and it's not good for farmers, two groups that Donald Trump likes to claim are going to do just so well under his presidency. So trade wars like this, they don't just raise prices, although they do. They also slow economic growth. They reduce economic activity. And Trump wants you to believe that he's being tough. I'll be tough on China by putting 6 different tariffs on them. I'll be tough on Mexico for the migrant crossings and the guns and the drugs by putting tariffs on them. What it really is self-inflicted damage. And both countries will end up losing economically. Now, just a little footnote, okay? Because I know that if I just leave it here and move on, I will get emails from brilliant people who will say, David, you're acting like there's never a place for tariffs. Tariffs can be used successfully. And of course, that's true. Tariffs can be a tool if used more as what's the right analogy? A scalpel rather than a monstrous mallet. In certain situations where you have alternatives and substitutes, where supply chains are not interwoven. Yeah, I've given the list of 6 or 7 conditions where you can use economic tariffs as a calculated, narrow tool to achieve some particular outcome. Saying we're going to tariff everything from China, Mexico, and Canada is not that. It is not that. It's not a velvet glove. It's more of a hammer, if the metaphor holds. So sure, that can be done. That's not what Donald Trump is doing it. All right, I have absolutely stunning stuff for you. If you thought basic economics couldn't take a bigger beating than it did during Donald Trump's first term, I have a new poll for you to look at. A new CBS News YouGov poll just dropped, and it is absolute and total cognitive dissonance. It is a farcical nightmare. Take a look at this. Now, I want to kind of preview for you. You're going to look at these numbers and say, David, those seem completely incoherent. 79% of Americans were asked, Americans were, let me put it a different way. Let me be clear. Americans were asked, what should Trump's top priority be? And 79% of them said to lower prices. Lowering prices is the top priority. Put aside for a moment that lowering prices means deflation, and that deflation can mean economic slowdown, and that can mean layoffs, and that can mean a lot of things that aren't good. Just ignore all of that for a second because we've got to put a limit somewhere, right? 79% of Americans say the number one priority should be lowering prices. Great. 52% of Americans favor Donald Trump's tariffs. 79% want lower prices as the number one goal, and 52% say, I'm in favor of Trump's tariffs, which will raise prices. And here's the kicker. 59% of Americans correctly believe that the tariffs will increase prices. So let me summarize that for you. People want lower prices. They support a policy that will raise prices, and they know that the policy they support is going to raise prices. But the most important thing for them is lower prices. This is hurting my brain, ladies and gentlemen. They're eating the cats. I feel like it's a disaster. Now, just yesterday, I did this story about people who can't do fourth grade math, and we expect them to parse major, complex policy proposals. Here is a great example of what happens when people are just clueless. But I don't think that this is just a math problem. This is a Trump problem. Trump, we look at these numbers, we say, wait, you want lower prices, but you support the tariffs and you know that they're going to increase prices. Something must be wrong. What's happening here? Trump has somehow managed to convince his supporters that up is down and left is right. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods, and we pay for them at the cash register. It's not China that pays for them. It's not Mexico. That's how this works. And Trump isn't really hiding this because Trump's tariffs have consistently raised prices. Remember when the washing machines went up 12% after that first round of tariffs during Donald Trump's first term. Now Trump's running the exact same scam. And somehow a chunk of the electorate has decided, I know we're going to pay more. I want the tariffs, and I also want lower prices. When inflation spikes again during Trump's term, if he does this, he may not do it, but if Trump does this, inflation will spike again. Wages will again not keep up with inflation. Under Biden, wage growth has exceeded inflation for the first time in a while. What is Trump's solution going to be when inflation starts going up and outpacing wage growth? Is it going to be more tariffs? Because Trump seems to have one tool, and that is the tariff. And when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Do we get a national emergency about the rising cost of Trump's Big Mac or whatever it is that he orders with seed oils and dyes all over it? I don't know what the answer is, but there is something very serious happening here. And unfortunately, I got a little bit of flack. Most people understood yesterday when I said, guys, how are we not doing 0.8 times 0.12? How is this such a difficult math problem? And I connected it to the lack of education and just a lot of the problems we have in this country. And most people got what I was saying. 99% of you did. 1% wrote to me, said, David, you're being elitist. You're doing this, you're doing that. You're a terrible person. Some of them even used anti-Semitic slurs. But most people understood that what I was pointing out was that if much of the population can't do fourth grade math, if much of the population doesn't understand the difference between a plurality and a majority, how on earth can we expect people to understand tariffs? Except a lot of people do understand it, and they still want it, even though what it will do is the opposite of what they're asking for, which is lower prices. I'm at a loss, folks. There's a reason I've been holding a stress ball on recent shows, right? What do we do with this? I don't know. Yeah, education's a part of it, but how do you fix that for people that are 40 right now and believe all of this nonsense? I don't have the answer. I do promise you that I explain in detail how it got this bad in my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine. So if you have not yet ordered it, I hope you will. Free stuff is available to everybody who pre-orders the book. We are pushing towards 4,000 pre-orders. The average commercially released book does not sell 2,000 copies, okay? We're already at close to 4,000 pre-orders. So thank you to everybody who has pre-ordered. You can go to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after you've pre-ordered to get all of your free stuff, right? Truly free stuff. Let's take a quick break and then much more on what we can expect economically and so many more things. Experience better sleep with the Pod 4 Ultra by 8 Sleep, one of today's sponsors. The Pod 4 Ultra is a smart mattress cover that fits easily over your existing mattress to regulate temperature throughout the night. You can choose a setting anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees. I like 60. I don't like getting hot when I sleep, and it makes a huge difference. If you share your bed, each side can be independently controlled. You have one temperature, your partner has another. The pod will also monitor your sleep and check out the patterns of sleep to automatically adjust the temperature to optimize rest. Snoring is no problem. The pod can gently elevate your head to reduce snoring when detected, leading to a better night's sleep for you and your partner. You can try the Pod 4 Ultra 30 nights with no risk. If it's not a good fit, send it back. My guess is you'll try it and want to keep it. Right now for Black Friday, 8 Sleep is giving my audience up to $600 off your Pod 4 Ultra purchase when bundled. Go to 8sleep.com/Pakman and use code Pakman. The link is in the description. Feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or struggling to sleep? One of our sponsors today is Pulsetto, a wearable that works with your vagus nerve. Think of it as your body's relaxation superhighway running from your brain to your organs. When your brain wants to send a calm down signal to your body, this is the express lane. The beauty of Pulsetto is simplicity. 5 to 10 minutes a day. You wear it while you're going about your regular activities. You don't need to carve out time or find a quiet space. Connect to the Pulsetto app. Choose from stress, anxiety, sleep, or burnout. Whether you're looking to enhance your meditation practice, ease into sleep, lower your heart rate, Pulsetto works with your body's natural systems to find balance. Pulsetto's Black Friday deal brings their wearable down to just $199. And when you go to pulsetto.tech/Pakman and use code Pakman, you'll get an exclusive 10% discount on top of that, bringing your total to only $179. It's their best offer of the year. The link is in the description. The David Pakman Show is an audience-supported program. You, folks like you who say, I kind of like what this guy's doing, even if I don't like him, even if I don't like his hoodie or his vest on the day before Thanksgiving, I like what he's doing, and I'm going to get a membership at joinpakman.com. Thanks to folks like that, we exist and hopefully are building independence and resilience from the vagaries and ups and downs of the algorithmic revenue platforms on which we have very little control. I invite you to sign up at joinpakman.com. You'll get an extra show every single day called The Bonus Show. You'll also get daily audio and video feeds of the show with no commercials and so much more. Check out joinpakman.com and you can use the coupon code not again, to get a discount. And finally, follow me on Blue Sky. I've essentially retired from tweeting, but you can find me on Blue Sky at davidpakman.com/Blue Sky. Hey, I love this. I'm going to play a video clip for you of a guy that, quite frankly, I don't have a great relationship with. It's a CNBC host named Joe Kernan. Joe Kernan has previously attacked me on Twitter, back when I was on Twitter. He's a big MAGA guy, but I have to give him credit. Sometimes he gets it right. And Joe Kernan and the whole crew over at CNBC was interviewing Kevin McCarthy, the former Republican Speaker of the House. And Joe Kernan gets something right, which is, a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump is proposing to do economically, the tax cuts, the tariffs, this is all pro-inflation. This is all inflationary. And Kevin McCarthy was confronted with that. And I have many criticisms of Joe Kernan. The way he recently flipped out on Anthony Scaramucci seemed completely inappropriate and out of line. And when he deserves criticism, I criticize him. But he really gets this right here. Take a listen to what he had to say. This is a MAGA guy acknowledging basic economics tells you what Trump plans to do. He is going to be inflation man before you know it.
You think that with all these different cross currents that were, tariffs were announced, or on day one, he's going to try and do some of these things.
Yeah, but did you read what he announced and why? I think this is very important.
Yeah, with immigration and fentanyl. And
immigration and fentanyl.
I got it.
So what are you saying? It's
but with all these, I'm just wondering, and with, and Scott Bessent said he's going to get the tax cuts extended and do the no tax on tips, do all those things. Don't a lot of things have to go right for us not to reignite inflation and scare the bond market? Wouldn't you? I'm surprised the bond market it's very strange. The 10-year yield keeps going down because it's supposed to be at 5% by now from fear of Trump.
No, think of this.
Joe Kernan is right. Doesn't even matter what Kevin McCarthy says. Joe Kernan is actually unable to get around the reality that this is the effect that it would have. All of these policies, and there's actually more, I'll even tell you in a moment. When Donald Trump tariffs China, Mexico, and Canada, things get more expensive here. That drives inflation. When Trump extends or generates new tax cuts, and this is one of those cases where I'm a beneficiary of what's called QBID, the qualified business income deduction. This is a deduction for certain types of businesses that Trump put in place. I benefit from it. I don't want to send Trump's cabinet any more money to do stuff with than I have to. I would much rather keep the tax cut and not send RFK more money to push ivermectin smoothies and raw milk with. But the truth is, it's not something that we can say is awesome for the economy to give me that QBID deduction. Trump's going to extend it. But there's more that's going to be inflationary that Trump will do. If Trump really starts mass deportations of undocumented migrants, they're talking about denaturalizing people. Will they do it? I don't know. But imagine they get their way. They're talking about renewing or not renewing or eliminating temporary protected status for folks like the Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio. If you start cutting the labor force in the United States, it will drive up the price of labor, which will be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for services or goods. Trump's entire package, I don't want to say definitively, but every policy I've looked at would increase prices and drive inflation. Now, maybe there's something in there I haven't mentioned which would have the opposite effect, but it is inflation, man. If you tried to say, let's figure out how to raise inflation, you would say, let's make it more expensive to import stuff. Let's cut taxes in a way that won't be economically stimulative. And let's reduce the labor force by deporting tens of millions of people. And people would say, oh, yeah, that's a perfect recipe for increasing prices. So good for Joe Kernan. I mean, he's still a MAGA supporter. He's not a Kamala guy, but he is bringing up something that anyone with a passing minimal understanding of economics would say, that is a recipe for inflation. Who do you think will get blamed if it happens? I don't know. I'm not asking rhetorically. I don't know. It would be right to blame Trump. This is like one of those very basic logic questions. If Trump's policies increase inflation, the blame should be placed on fill in the blank. Is it, I don't know, is it Obama? Is it Biden? They'll figure out a way to blame someone else, but the blame should be on Donald Trump. Let's start with a premise. The MAGA movement loves to brand their orange savior, Donald Trump, as the ultimate alpha male winner. But as Donald Trump is getting ready for term number 2, his cabinet picks reveal something interesting. Trump has assembled what I can really only describe as a loser squad. This is not hyperbole. Trump's new cabinet is stacked to the gills with people who have one particular thing in common, other than being unqualified for most of their roles. It's that they have an impressive history of losing elections. There's a nice little article on Roll Call called Trump's Second Administration Set to be Filled with Losers. The article is by Nathan Gonzalez. And it makes the argument that Trump's cabinet picks are consistently losers. Now, I want to be clear. Losing an election doesn't mean you can't serve in government. Plenty of great leaders have stumbled at the ballot box, and then they did good things or were competent. You could imagine, I don't know, a lawyer runs for something and loses and then gets hired to be White House counsel. But no, fine, no problem. The point here is the sheer number of losing candidates that Donald Trump is bringing on board. And it really is remarkable. It's like Trump went out of his way to prove he doesn't just love losers, he loves hiring losers. So I'll just run down the list. These are nominees. Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio. Humiliating 2016 Republican primary performance. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, the wrestling lady. Back-to-back losses running for Senate in Connecticut. Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez DeRemer. 3 election losses to her name. 3. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth tried to run for Senate in Minnesota, didn't even make it to the primary. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, former congressman, he tried to win the governor's race in New York in 2022, lost that one. Doge guy, the Department of Grifty Edgelords, Vivek Ramaswamy, lost the Republican primary, lost by a lot. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, lost the 2006 special election so badly, he finished 8th in a crowded field. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs, former Republican Congressman from Georgia, Doug Collins, lost 2020 election for a Senate seat in Georgia. Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., he lost multiple campaigns this cycle. He didn't win as an independent. He didn't win the Democratic primary. He didn't win anything that he ran for. Dr. Oz lost his Senate race in the last cycle. Director of National Intelligence, former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, unsuccessful Democratic primary run. White House Press Secretary nominee Caroline Leavitt lost a couple years ago in New Hampshire's 1st District. I could go on and on and on. But this is yet another way in which Trump's presidencies embody the smoke and mirrors reality that everything is the opposite of what Trump claims. And Trump claims to be the person who hires winners and hires alphas and is alpha. And it's just winning is oozing out of every pore of their bodies. They hit the body with winning. And these are all losers who then end up having to go and get hired for something else because the voters wouldn't actually reward them with a position. If they were supremely qualified for their roles, it would be different. But it's both. These are a band of losers who also have no business being in the roles they're in. You're going to put Dr. Oz in charge of programs he seems skeptical about. You're going to put Pete Hegseth in charge of the Defense Department. Wrestling lady Linda McMahon in charge of education, including when she's accused of having covered up, looked the other way with regard to sexual assault. Tulsi Gabbard, a possible sort of soft Russian asset whose interest seems to be foreign countries rather than ours, in charge as director of national intelligence. It's both that they have no business being in these roles and also that they happen to be political losers. Now, what's ultimately going to happen, we know from experience, is that Trump will have explosive radioactive fallouts with a number of these people. And probably within the first year. Who will resign? Who will get fired? Who will Trump ultimately say, I did hire the right person, but they became bad. They were the right hire at the time. We can see now these are not good hires, and it's only a matter of time until it blows up in his face. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. All right, let's get into our second episode of Trump versus Trump. This might be the last episode. The way this started is yesterday I was going to do a segment just sort of reminding ourselves Trump used to be for use whichever bathroom you want. Then he went to this anti-trans insanity. He used to be for this, now he's against it. And we had so many examples that I ended up just splitting it up into two parts, the second of which is today. Remember that part of this is, what will Trump's next term be like? And as we ask, well, what policies is he going to focus on? He's talked a lot about tariffs and doing things about, quote, men and women's sports. These seem to be his obsessions. We never really know what he's going to do. And the reminder that's critical here as we look at some of these videos is that Trump's taken both sides, or many sides, on multiple issues over the years. And part of it is pandering. Part of it is he doesn't even know what he believes in some cases. Let's look at some reminders. Here is Trump after the Parkland shooting saying guns should be confiscated without due process. What you're going to hear in this clip is former Vice President Mike Pence, the one that MAGAs wanted to kill, saying we figured out a way to take guns from people who shouldn't have them with due process. And Trump goes, sometimes you just got to take them. I know that this will shock some people, but here is Trump. Take a listen.
Mike? Well, in the category, you've spoken about it, Mr. President, gun violence restraining orders, they're called. California actually has a version of this. And I think in your meeting with governors earlier this week, individually and as a group, we spoke about states taking steps, but the focus is to literally give families and give local law enforcement additional tools if an individual is reported to be a potential danger to themselves or others. Allow due process so that no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession of that individual.
Or might take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system. Because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early.
Take the guns now, Mike. Just take the guns. It is stunning that at some point not that long ago, that was Trump's view. Of course, then we have Trump speaking to the NRA, where he says, roll back every damn gun control policy.
In my second term, we will roll back every Biden attack on the Second Amendment. The attacks are fast and furious, starting the minute that Crooked Joe shuffles his way out of the White House.
The guy that previously said, take guns from people with no due process, is then saying, we've got to roll back every single one of these damn regulations. It's Trump versus Trump. Remember Trump famously telling Howard Stern, yeah, I support going into Iraq, absolutely.
Really don't know the enemy.
I know, they're skulking around somewhere and you just feel like you're a sitting duck.
But we have an idea who the enemy is, and a lot of times the politicians don't want to tell you that.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so. I wish it was. I wish the first time it was done correctly.
Right. Are you still against rebuilding the World Trade Center?
I'm not against rebuilding it. I guess.
So Trump says, yeah. I mean, I wish it had been done differently the first time, but I am for invading Iraq. And then Trump in 26 campaigned on, I was never for going into Iraq. He would straight up lie every time it came up and say, never, 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 not me, never did it. Never said it.
Mr. Trump, a lot of these are judgment questions. You had supported the war in Iraq before the invasion. What makes your judgment?
I did not support the war in Iraq.
2002.
That is a mainstream media nonsense put out by her, because she, frankly, I think the best person in her campaign is mainstream media.
My question is, since you
would you like to
supported
hear?
it, why is your
war. Wait a minute. I was against the war in Iraq.
And of course, he wasn't against the war in Iraq. He said it to Howard Stern, and he said it in other places. He became against the war retrospectively as a way to criticize George W. Bush and that brand of republicanism and justify why someone should consider him as the nominee rather than maybe a more traditional Republican back in 2015, 2016. He'll just lie about whatever. Here's one more. Same-sex marriage. I'm completely fine with it, he used to say.
One of the groups that's expressing fear is the LGBTQ group.
And yet I mentioned them at the Republican National Convention. And everybody said that was so great. I have been I've been a supporter.
Well, I guess the issue for them is marriage equality. Do you support marriage equality?
It's irrelevant because it was already settled. It's law. It was settled in the Supreme Court.
Okay. So then we get to, not the strongest support, but he says, I'm fine with gay people and I have no interest in doing anything about that. Then here is Trump later on talking about how, actually, I am for traditional marriage, if you really ask me.
Let's talk about same-sex marriage. You said a few years ago that you were evolving on that issue. Where are you?
I'm traditional marriage. It is changing rapidly.
But what do you say to a lesbian who's married or a gay man who's married who says, Donald Trump, what's traditional about being married 3 times?
Well, they have a very good point. But, I've been a very hard-working person. I have a great marriage. I have a great wife now. And my 2 wives were very good. And I don't blame them. But I was working.
All right, you get the point. So he's a traditional marriage guy. I will kind of wrap this, and we could do this for months. I'm not going to do it to you. I know it's a little, it's a little gag worthy to continue doing this every single day. But I think between yesterday's examples and today's, the primary takeaway is we may not even really be able to know what he personally thinks. I don't even know that sometimes Trump has fully formed ideas about some of this stuff. He'll just kind of go with whatever someone most recently told him or what someone whispered to him 5 minutes before he went on stage. It's actually irrelevant. It doesn't matter. What matters is how is he going to legislate. He has made it clear whatever Trump's real view is about trans people, he's apparently friends with Caitlyn Jenner or whatever Trump defines as friends, and Caitlyn gets to use whatever bathroom she wants when she's at Mar-a-Lago. Cool. What matters is how he's going to govern. And if he's really going to start launching people out of the military for being trans on day one, as reports claim he's going to do, if he is really going to start targeting women's bodily and medical autonomy, as he says that he's going to do, all these different things. What matters is how he governs. He might be pro-choice in private. He might be pro-same-sex marriage in private, whatever. What matters is how he is going to govern. And that's really the terrifying thing. A sweaty Trump got another fake award, this time from Moms for America. Let me tell you about this one because there is a puppy mill angle to it. Moms for America is a Trump-aligned group. And it's kind of one of these right-wing mom-type groups. They want all sorts of wacky stuff in schools. And you know the sort of group I'm talking about. They held a fundraiser at Trump's house, Mar-a-Lago. They had live auctions, including auctioning off live dogs, okay? They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Former President Trump delivered a little bit of a speech as they gave him the Man of the Century Award. This is another one of these completely fake awards. It's just a meaningless thing, but this is how you get Trump to like you. You give him an award. And the group said no one has sacrificed like Trump over the last 100 years for the country. Trump is the biggest sacrificer in the United States in the last century.
The Founding Fathers Award, which everybody affectionately labeled the Man of the Year Award. That's right. This man has done more for this country, sacrificed more for this country, taken more for this country than anyone in the last century. So this year we're presenting him with the Man of the Century Award.
All right, so they give him the award. Now, there is more to this. It's not just yet another fake, meaningless award. It's not just yet another example of how you must supplicate to Trump and pray at his altar and the whole thing. There's more to this. At least one puppy provided by Big Dog Ranch Rescue was auctioned for $6,000 and is going to be sent to Dallas. And the entire event and this puppy auction raises major questions about the ethics of selling live animals at these events, especially given that Big Dog Ranch Rescue is tied to puppy mills. In September of 2023, this group violated Palm Beach County's ordinances by buying 250 dogs from a Missouri puppy mill auction. And local ordinances say you're not allowed to do that. When you buy the dogs from the puppy mills, even if you're doing it to, quote, save them, you perpetuate the very problem that these organizations claim to be trying to solve. And it's against the law. There's always something against the law that surrounds Trump. And Big Dog Ranch Rescue has been involved in past Trump events. There was one in March where Lara Trump auctioned puppies for $10,000. We've known for a long time Trump's relationship with dogs is not actually, it's not really the closest, that's for sure. And every aspect of this, fake award, auctioning off puppies by supposed Christian groups, this time Moms for America, who, if you sit them down, will tell you we are the most moral and the most ethical and the most Christian, and we should be in charge of kids' schooling and everything related to morality, and they're auctioning off puppies. What another humiliation this is. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the Daily Bonus Show, the commercial-free Daily Show. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. All right, we're doing the Friday feed bag a little early this week. What with the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, just a reminder, we'll be off Thursday and Friday and then back at it on Monday. Remember that Friday feedback includes emails sent to info@davidpakman.com, but then also comments, replies, or direct messages on any of our social platforms are game. And I want to start here with MST3K Pimp. I think that's Mystery Science Theater 3000. See how I know stuff, guys? I'm not completely out of touch. Who says, I seem to recall Michelle Obama pushing for a school health initiative and the right excoriated her. Yeah, so this is a really important thing to dig into. It is true, and it's an absolutely accurate assessment that now that you've got this RFK, raw milk, ivermectin smoothies, no vaccines, no fluoride thing going on, MAGA, Make America Healthy Again, the right-wingers are absolutely loving it, saying this is what we need. There's obesity, there's diabetes, there's all these different things. When Michelle Obama was like, hey, maybe we'll plant and eat more vegetables and it'd be great for school lunches to be healthier, the right excoriated her. They said it's nanny state nonsense, it's all crazy, it's all... So part of it, of course, is that it's just partisan. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is no longer a Democrat, and he is going to be working, if he can get confirmed, for the Trump administration, whereas Michelle Obama was a Democrat, the first lady to a Democratic president. That is part of it, and it's simply partisan. But it's also about the disdain for actual expertise in science. And so they would much rather start to talk about the causes of our health issues are, drinking pasteurized milk, getting vaccines, not getting access to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, not having beef tallow and instead having seed oils, the sort of stuff. When the reality, of course, is that science is really good at telling us about what is healthier with increased accuracy. And I would actually encourage folks to listen to what people sometimes ask me, what podcasts do I listen to? One of the podcasts I listen to is the Farewell podcast. I think it's all one word, Farewell, F-A-R-E-well. They did an episode recently about this whole Make America Healthy Again thing. And they point out that a lot of the stuff that's going on is really just a distraction. The focus on food dyes all of a sudden. Not only do you hear phrases like, the food dyes are so unhealthy, they're illegal in Europe. Okay. As I've said before, you break that down. A lot of the food dyes that are illegal in Europe but legal here, you can have the exact same thing that's legal in Europe under a different name. A lot of these food dyes have different names depending on either what country you're in or how they're made. They're banned here and they're legal in Europe. They're basically the same thing. They just have different names. But when you step back, do any of us really think that if it weren't for food dyes, we would not have this epidemic of obesity, the epidemic of diabetes, all these different things? No, of course not. It's not the food dyes in the food. It's that people are eating too many calories, too much processed food, not enough fresh food, not enough fruits and vegetables. So a lot of this stuff just becomes a distraction. And there's a focus on, the McDonald's fries should be made in tallow. You just shouldn't be going to McDonald's is really the right takeaway. Or you should be getting fewer than 10% of your daily calories from ultra processed foods like those at McDonald's. Anyway, there is a double standard. They were furious that Michelle Obama would have the audacity to make some health suggestions, but they want RFK making them when RFK is also not a doctor, which they were very quick to point out about Michelle Obama. All right, let's continue. Supreme Salt Lord on Reddit wrote, "We blame the fans when our team loses. In no other competition in the world or history of mankind, maybe, have we blamed the fans when our favorite loses. But in politics, particularly Democrats, we blame them. We blame them. Then we look to them again to vote in the next competition after saying it's their fault last time. I called it months ago here, maybe a year. If Kamala doesn't give voters a reason to leave work to vote, they won't. She lost the popular vote by 3.5 million. Not anymore. That number has declined. The electoral was snatched by 600,000 in key swing states and counties. That number is also much smaller. About 10 million fewer votes than Biden in 2020. That number is also much smaller. But I think there is a good point here, which is this individual says, Kamala didn't offer me much as a voter in her rallies. The celebrity appearances don't mean anything to me. Child tax credit is great when childlessness is at all-time highs. $50,000 low-interest loans are great when the average house is $400,000 or more. I still supported her, but it was to keep Trump out more than because I wanted her there. Kamala represented business as usual, and that sucks when business for most is bad. God help us all over the next 4 years. I hope none of us get denaturalized or killed by the state." Yeah, listen, I am not going to sit here and tell this person, you're wrong about how you felt. Obviously, this person felt this way, and so did millions of voters who said, I'm not seeing what's being offered to me. Now, you might counter and say, well, why isn't it about what's being offered to you? And not, it should be about what's being offered to the people. You, me, we all are part of the people. And you have to acknowledge that not enough was offered, either in terms of ideology or policy or personality or vision, for enough people to go out and say, I'm going to vote to prevent this. And that's why we ended up where we are. It has to be part of the accounting in thinking of 2026 and 2028. And while the instinct of some might be to attack that person, I think that the critical part, if we want to win, is we have to listen to the way they ended up feeling. Doesn't mean they got a lot of their numbers wrong, no doubt. But we have to understand that. Indian Kiwi on subreddit said, why do Democrats let Republicans run circles around them? Take this McBride issue, referring to Sarah McBride, the first trans member of Congress. The Republicans are passing the bill to obviously spite her. That is literally in her own words. Congresswoman McBride took the smart decision and said, yeah, it sucks, but I will abide by the dumb rule. And then AOC drags on with her statement, this will make women and girls unsafe. Just let it go. The GOP are playing this culture war crap because that is literally all they can do. And the Dems walking into their trap. Do you know who is going to feel awkward? The Republican congressman when they get a boner watching Sarah McBride come into their bathroom. So as is often the case, there are things to take that are relevant from this and things that maybe I don't subscribe to as much. Over the last couple of weeks, a number of left-wing commentators have acknowledged we maybe should realize that to a lot of people in the country, the entire trans issue is just seen differently. Some of these left-wing commentators were wrongly attacked, like Aaron Rupar was attacked for posting something that like, hey, while I'm all for this stuff, a lot of people aren't and we should ignore it. And of course, Aaron and others aren't saying we ignore it, but we have to acknowledge that for a lot of voters, this stuff is a net negative. It's kind of like, to a degree, when Democrats talk about guns in federal campaigns, it usually just hurts them. So it's not we pretend trans people don't exist, obviously not. But I think the AOC example is a good one. It's not obvious that saying Sarah McBride in DC at the Capitol has to use the men's room makes, quote, women and girls less safe. It's still a problem. I still think that what Nancy Mace is doing is disgusting. I'm for defending the rights and equitable treatment of all LGBTQ plus people. That doesn't change. But maybe the going extra and continuing, rather than what Sarah McBride did herself, which is to say that they're obviously targeting me. They're upset. It's for spite. I'm going to go and be a lawmaker and represent my constituents, and I'll just use the bathroom they tell me to use, right? Like, at the end of the day, what's she going to do? I do think it's worth considering that perspective while acknowledging we're not abandoning the trans community. One other on this issue, this is from MKY Mouse 73, who says, serious question. If conservatives want trans women out of women's restrooms, then should they go to men's rooms? And thus, would they allow trans men into women's restrooms? Really serious question. I don't know the answer. I'm not trying to be political. Conservatives want trans women out of women's rooms because they were born male, regardless if they have female genitalia. So would they allow trans men into the women's rooms, thus okay with people born female, but now with penises into the restroom? If no to both, where should trans women and I think they mean trans women and trans men go to the bathroom? Yeah, this is, of course, there's a couple sides to this. It seems as though these Republicans really want trans women in the men's room, and they don't seem to have any concern that is symmetrical with regard to whatever it is they claim to be concerned about. But it also, as we talked about last week, are they saying they want Blair White in the men's room? Are they saying they want Chaz Bono? I think I pronounced it wrong last week. People told me about it. Do they want Chaz Bono in the women's room? That also doesn't really make a lot of sense. At the end of the day, I think they just want to harass trans people. That really seems to be what this is about. Juliet Ridley said, if Kennedy hasn't got the balls and fortitude to refuse the poison and advertising it, at least that's how he sees it, referring to RFK having McDonald's with Trump, how is he going to stand up against Trump on decisions he needs to make that Trump won't like? Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it is a fair criticism of RFK that despite his whole MAGA thing, we see him having high fructose corn syrup Coca-Cola out of a plastic bottle and McDonald's food on Trump's plane. Seems like a conflict, seems like an inconsistency, and I completely agree with it. At the same time, it seems that as far as the policies he wants to put in, he and Trump seem pretty aligned, so I don't know if it's going to be a problem. Jason Yarmuk says, yeah, after I said that we were being targeted potentially by some of the incoming folks that will be around Trump, Jason says, yes, please go after the radical left-wing shows like Pakman. Censor them like they did to conservatives. It doesn't matter that everything Jason is saying is untrue. Nobody censored conservatives. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. There is a group of Trump supporters, and it is bigger than some of us want to admit, for our own sake. There is a group of Trump supporters that are desperate for shows like this one. I just punched the mic because I'm getting so agitated. Desperate for shows like this one to be targeted. We're going to do everything we can to prevent it from happening. Oh, one more on the trans issue. Scott O'Leary wrote, I'm a coach in girls club volleyball. I have never, after coming into contact with hundreds of teams, ever coached or competed against a transgender girl. I'm not sure where I would fall on this issue if I was faced with it, but the point, David, that you're making is spot on. Compared to the economy, fair taxation, healthcare, lack of affordable housing, it is a very tiny issue. I also work in a school with a number of LGBTQ kids, and I'm worried about them. Yeah, I got a couple angry messages from trans folks after I said on the Piers Morgan show, almost no one is trans, and almost none of the trans people are competing in sports at a level competitive enough where this actually makes a difference. A few people wrote to me and said, David, you clearly don't care about trans people. And of course, that's not the issue. The issue is what I was saying earlier, which is that the drama around this is totally unnecessary. Sports leagues and competition boards and whatever, they've dealt with the issue of intersex people for a really long time and are very well equipped to make decisions right for their league. And blowing it up into a political issue that statistically relates to a tiny sliver of the population. It's a sliver of the trans population, which is a sliver of the total population. It's not that I'm saying because there aren't that many trans people We don't care about this. The point is the right is contriving the issue in order to generate some of the responses they generate, and they are very good at that. That's the point I was making, and I think Scott here is pointing that out. Finally, Irving says, David, I must ask that you please stop comparing Trump's cabinet to a circus, a clown car, or a carnival. Carnivals and circuses are extremely well-staffed and coordinated operations with talented individuals. This is just offensive to the clowns. Yeah, it is true. The Ringling Brothers Circus, rest in peace, I think it's over, was far better organized than Trump's transition. Point absolutely taken. We will see you on the bonus show. Have a great Thanksgiving if you are in the U.S., if you're celebrating. And we will be back with more shows on Monday, of course. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. Upgrade your sleep with the award-winning Pod 4 Ultra by 8 Sleep, a smart mattress cover that fits easily over your existing mattress with adjustable temperature settings ranging from 55 to 110 degrees. You and your partner can each enjoy customized comfort on your own side of the bed. I keep mine at 60 to stay cool throughout the night. It even includes smart technology to adjust your mattress position, help reduce snoring. Plus, you'll have 30 days to see if it's the right fit for you. Right now, for Black Friday, 8 Sleep is giving my audience up to $600 off your Pod 4 Ultra purchase when bundled. Go to 8sleep.com/Pakman and use code Pakman. The link is in the description.